Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Chloe and I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday, so make sure you subscribe to see more. Today I am bringing you my bridal makeup routine, what I did for my wedding day in regards to my makeup and skincare, and how I got this look. So if you want to find out how to create this look and what I did on my wedding day, then just stay tuned. So the first thing that I actually started off with, and that everyone should start off with, is skincare. I actually did my skincare and then did my hair, well, curled it at least anyway, so that my skincare had some time to sink in. Now, when you are thinking about your skincare for your wedding day, you're going to want to use a moisturiser that definitely has no SPF in it, because that is going to give you flashback usually. So the one that I use is the Bridal Skin Repair Moisturiser for normal and combination skin, and this is the exact one that I use on my wedding day. This one is just like my kind of standard holy grail everyday moisturiser, but it also doesn't have that SPF in, and it sinks into your skin really nice, so it doesn't leave any kind of oily residue. But when you're looking for your moisturiser for your wedding day, what I'd suggest is trying a few different ones out. See what really works for your skin. Don't just try something new like the week of. Really try it with your makeup regime and your routine, and check that it's working with your makeup products well. I applied this about 30 minutes before I did my makeup while I curled my hair, just so it had time to really sink into your skin. And then what I also did was I use an eye cream. Now I only use a really tiny bit, and I use the Origins Ginseng Refreshing Eye Cream, and this is really nice because it's kind of a pearlescent finish, just a really lightweight one. And the reason I use this is because it does have pearlescent properties in it, so just by really lightly dabbing it all the way underneath your eyes, it just kind of brightens up that under eye area and helps you have that like glow from within look. So again, that's really important. You obviously want to look glowing on your wedding day. Then when it came on to actually do my makeup, what I did was I started on my eyes first. Now this isn't the way that you have to do it, this is the way that I did it, because I think that on your wedding day you're going to want to make sure that your base looks absolutely perfect. So by doing your eyes first, you're going to make sure that you can wipe away any fallout. You know, you don't have to worry about if there is some random fallout that it's going to sit into your makeup and look a mess. And also, I used some sparkles on my wedding day, so I didn't want to have those falling down. So the first thing I actually did was my eyebrows, and I filled them in using the NYX Professional Makeup Micro Brow Pencil in the colour Taupe. I did this first because by filling in your eyebrows, you're going to get the outline shape of what you want your eyes to be, and it helps you to actually do your eye makeup a little bit better. So by seeing the outline, you can see definitely where you're wanting to work within your eyes. This one's really good, it's just a really tiny little pencil, and then I just use some really tiny hair strokes with mine. Obviously eyebrows are a total personal preference. For me personally, I think that if you go lighter, then it looks more natural, and that tends to be what most brides want to do for their wedding day. I didn't necessarily want to have a completely natural makeup, but I definitely wanted to more enhance my features rather than having some big drawn on bulky brows. When I'm filling in my eyebrows, I always go heavier on the tail as well, and then feather it out and use a much lighter pressure on the front, and that's going to give you that kind of natural ombre effect that most people's brows naturally have. And then just using the spoolie on the end to brush them through. Again, going a little bit harder at the front, as you do want the least product there. So now we've got our brows on, now we're going to outline them with concealer. So I outlined and also primed my lips with my concealer, and the one I used is the Tarte Shape Tape, and I used it in the colour Fair. And I literally just dab this all over my eyelids, and then take a flat brush and bring this up around my brows so that I've got a really defined line, and then I also did it on the top of the brows as well. The Shape Tape is such an amazing concealer as well. It is so full coverage, so you're definitely going to cover anything you want to cover for your wedding day. And I just find that it stays in place all day as well. It really does last. I always like to bring it into the corners of my eyes, because that is where I tend to get the most darkness, and then bring it out on the edges as well. go around the outside of the brow to get that perfect clean line. And then bringing it down the centre as well. And I like to really gently just go back and forth to help with lightening it up in the middle there. So there we go, look really funny now. And I'm actually going to take just the wand and take a little bit on my brush to go over the tops. And then I'm just going to go back in with the pencil and redefine those edges. And this is just going to make sure that your brows are the perfect shape for you. So now that they're done, we are going to set the eyelids. So I'm just going to go over and make sure that we've got no creases at all in them. And the product I use to set my concealer in place is the Kat Von D Shade and Light palette. This is the highlight and contour. I used a Sigma tapered highlighter brush, and I actually used a mixture between the top two ones in this palette, so the nude skin coloured one and the banana colour, and I literally just dipped in between both those colours, tapped off the excess and just placed it over the eyelid. This is just going to make sure that you don't get any creasing on that concealer and that all of your eyeshadow is going to blend seamlessly over it. Now moving on to the eyes and the eyeshadow. So I use two palettes mainly for my eyes. The first one being the Violet Voss Pro Eyeshadows, and this is in the Matte About You palette. So this is just a complete matte palette with loads of different warm tone shades. So you'll be able to see you've got some lighter ones up here, some more orangey browny tones, to then some really dark burgundies, and there is also a matte black in the palette as well. I used a mixture of this one and then also the Natural Love by Too Faced. And this one is mainly a shimmer palette. A whole range of different shades, so we've got some golds, some pinks, some burgundies, and then obviously still some of the warmer tones at the bottom. So I'll go through each one individually and tell you which colour I'm using and from which palette. So the first thing I did was take a big Sigma fluffy brush, and I think this is the E10, although it has rubbed off, so I could be wrong, but it's just a nice big fluffy brush, and take some colours through my crease so that we've got a nice transition colour. So the colours I used are from the Too Faced palette, and I used Nude and Honey Butter. So Nude is a nice natural brown, and then Honey Butter is more of a peachy shade. So together they just blend really nice to create something kind of neutral. So I literally just my brush and swirled it a few times in both of them, tap off the excess, and then work this through the crease. Now I do have hooded eyes, so I come slightly higher than what a natural crease would be, and I'm just using both circular and windshield wiper motions. Nothing too neat. Again, these are the transition colours, so this is just going to make sure that everything else blends seamlessly on our eyes. So you'll just see a little bit of definition starting to come in there. So we're just going to repeat that step again. And then now we're going to move on into the Violet Voss palette, again with the same big fluffy brush, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into Mesmerised, which is this kind of more orangey shade here. This is going to bring some warmth into the look. So again, just tapping it in a few times, tapping off the excess, and then placing it in the exact same place. I should also say that when you're doing your eye makeup, it does really help if you have a mirror that you can kind of look down into. It's going to really open up your eye so you don't have to tilt your head too far back. By layering loads of different colours on your eyes as well, you're really going to create the look of like depth to your eye. And that's going to be really important for your photos. You're not going to look flat and like you've just got one eyeshadow on. You know, like I say, you're really going to add depth and 3D to your look, and it's just going to make you look a lot more glamorous. Then I dipped back into the Too Faced palette and I switched up my brush now. So this is a Sigma Blending E25 brush. So this is a more densely packed brush, so you can pack a lot more colour on. So what I did is I dipped into Makeup and Chill, which is this brown down here, and this is a chocolate brown, so it's a lot deeper. And I just put this on one side of my brush, tapped off the excess, and then placed it literally on the outer corner of my eye and just patted it in there into kind of the outer V area, to be able to see that's like really defined there. And then what I did was I worked this really gently with the same brush and then just brought it through the crease on the very outer parts. So you'll be able to see we're building a lot more depth up there as well. And then back in with a big fluffy brush to blend it out. And then just with that same big fluffy brush, just bringing it all the way across as well. You'll be able to see now this one has so much more depth and definition than this one. So we're going to repeat the same step on the other eye. And then on my wedding day I actually repeated this step another time. So going into that Makeup and Chill colour again, tapping off the excess and placing it in the outer V. And then taking our blender brush to blend it out. And then you'll see the eye look starting to come together a little bit now. And then what's left on your more defined brush, I just ran through the crease, but making sure you keep it quite low in your crease. And then last step for this round anyway, I actually took the big fluffy brush and dipped it into that honey butter, that peachy colour again, and just run it right on the edge of your eyeshadows to make sure you can still see that transition shade and just to help blend everything together. So there we go. So that's the main portion of your eye done now. So at this stage I highlighted my brow bone and I took a really tiny pencil brush. This is a very old one, any pencil brush will do, and I used the Natural Love palette again and I dipped it into Pink Cheeks and Poodle, which are both two very shimmery, bright, these are like pinky colours. So I dipped it equally into those two, top off the excess, and then just did it on the very highest points underneath that eyebrow. And a brow bone highlight is one thing that people always forget. It's a step that people don't think is really necessary, but when you do it, it makes a whole load of difference to your eye makeup. It just brings everything together. Now we're going to work on the main part of the lid, and I put a base colour down first, and the one that I used was Satin Sheet, and again in the Too Faced palette, using a Zoeva 232 Luxe Classic shader brush. So just a flat shader brush to pack on some colour. Dipped it into Satin Sheets, give it a good rub in there, tap off any excess, and then just place this on the mobile lid where you've not actually placed any colour yet. And this is just going to be a base for the next things we put down. Now this is a very shimmery colour, so to be honest, if you wanted to, you could leave it there. It's a gorgeous look as it is. This is what I'd call like a classic bridal look. This is what I tend to do on most brides. They want a neutral smoky eye, but nothing too intense, you know, just like some nice browns, a little bit of shimmer on the lid, which this look perfectly suits that. However, I wanted to take it one step further and I wanted to have some actual glitter on my lids. So they're both by Stila, and the first one is in the shade Metallic Dusty Rose, and this is one of the Magnificent Metal Eyes. And then on top of that I use the Stila Magnificent Metals Glitter and Glow eyeshadow in the shade Kitten Karma. So these are both a rose gold. First of all I used the Magnificent Metals on its own, and I use the little Stay All Day liquid eye primer that comes with it. And what I do is I take a little bit of the Magnificent Metals, pop it onto this tray here, you'll be able to see where I've done previous ones, add one drop of this and mix it together and then place it all over your eye. Now this does stay wet, so you're going to need to tip your head back and be looking down into your mirror so you can really let it dry without creasing. So that's the first step we're going to do. The brush I use to do this is a Zoeva 237 Detail Shader. So we're just going to take, I don't know if you can see, but there's a few flakes on the brush there. Pop it in the tray and then add one drop of the primer. And then just start applying it all over this mobile lid, keeping it lower than you probably would think. And I'm going to go in about halfway. And I found the best way to work with this is patting it on and working quite quickly. And if you are doing your own makeup for your wedding, I'm guessing you'll have a few practices. So during these practices you'll be able to see as well how high up you should go and see what's going to work best for your eye shape. There we go, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but it's just a really nice metallic kind of foiled look. And like I say, you will now want to sit with your head slightly back so that you're not going to get any creasing for a couple of minutes while that dries. So still keeping my head tipped back a little bit, we're going to go in with the Stila Magnificent Metals. Again with the same brush. And I'm just going to make sure that it's loaded up with product on the actual wand. And then take the brush and collect some of the glitters off it. And then place these in the exact same place, patting them on over that other colour. And you'll be able to tell already that this adds just so much sparkle. Again, I like to do a few light layers on each eye. Use whatever's on my brush, plus a teeny little bit more, and just place a couple of random bits on the outside so that it doesn't just end but it blends kind of nicely. Now we are going to want to let this dry properly for about 5 minutes before we move on to the next step. And then once I was happy that that was dry, I went on with my eyeliner. So I have always used a liquid eyeliner on my top lash line. I've just always really liked the way it looks. So the one I used on my wedding day, again, I wanted to use products that I knew were going to last all day. And that's why I use the Kat Von D tattoo liner in the shade Trooper, which is just a black. And again, this is a 24-hour wear, so I knew that it wasn't going to budge. I didn't do any kind of flick or wing or anything. I literally just drew a nice thin line all across the top of my eye. Now I don't know if I'll actually be able to get this in camera, so if I don't, then I'll be back after I've done it. So there we go, I've got the liner on now. And then another step that I did was to take this brush that had our darker transition shade on it, and just to pat over the edges of where you put that glitter to make sure that it's all blended in really nicely to each other. Just really lightly. Now we're going to move on to mascara. Now on my actual wedding day I had individual eyelash extensions on, but I still wanted to make sure that they were super black and voluminous and stood out. So I did so much research into finding what a good mascara was. And obviously when you think of your wedding day or anyone's wedding, you think of waterproof mascara. But I've never had any luck with waterproof mascaras. They've always been kind of not as good and really hard to get off. But then I came across one that was getting reviews from everybody saying that you should definitely wear this one for your wedding. And this is by MAC, and this is the... I can't even remember the name of this, to be honest. It's the one that looks like this, and it has the blue MAC writing all the way down it, which signals that it's the waterproof version. But the one that looks like this anyway is amazing. I'll show you the little brush as well. So this is one of those plastic spoolies which I would not usually go for, but because it was so highly recommended I just went for it. And then I just coated my top eyelashes with this. Like I say, I did have falsies on as well, but I just wanted to make sure that they were super dark. And that's where I kind of left my eyes now. I moved on to my skin before I went back and worked on them. So let's move on to skin now. This is one of the most important parts of your wedding makeup. I think it's the thing that people fear the most. I did so much research in watching other videos and reading reviews, seeing what would work for me, trying different products out. I had 2 years to plan my wedding, so I had plenty of time to try a few different things. But in the end, I actually ended up going back to my day-to-day foundation. The first thing that you're definitely going to want to do is prime your face. And for me personally, I can tend to get a little bit of oiliness throughout the day, so I use the Hourglass Veil Mineral Primer. This is superb. It comes out like a white consistency, and it's not a silicone based primer, and it's not a pore filling primer, so makeup's not going to slide off your face, but it's not too hydrating. It's literally just the perfect primer. I take about a large pea-sized amount, rub it between my fingers, and then literally work it all into your skin. There we mascara. At this point as well, you can go in and clear up if you did have any fallout. Personally today I don't. I know that on my wedding day I just had a little baby wipe to hand so that I could just wipe it away if there was any fallout there. And then we're going to move on to foundation. So the foundation that I actually used is the Estee Lauder Double Wear. Now I was a bit sceptical about using this because it does have an SPF of 10 in it. I'd heard really terrible things about it flashing back. But like I say, this was kind of my day-to-day foundation and I've always loved it. I always rave about it to all of my friends. It stays in place, it doesn't look too cakey. But because I was afraid of the flashback, I decided to try some different products out. But in the end, nothing was comparing to this. So I came back to it and did a few flash tests with it, and I actually found that personally I didn't have any flashback with it. And at the end of the day, I also thought that I wanted to look good in person on my wedding day and in my photographs, and because I did have a professional photographer there, he could make sure that the colour balance was spot on so that I wouldn't have any flashback anyway. So that was kind of where I was at, and in photos that I've seen from people's phones as well, I didn't have any flashback that I can see. So you should definitely give this a try for yourself. Now I use the shade 3W1 Tawny, and this is what I use when I'm a bit more tanned. For my wedding day I did have a spray tan, so I use the Sienna X spray tans. I have my sister-in-law come to my house and do them. We kind of trade off, because I can do them and she can do them, we just do each other's. So that's what we did for my wedding day, and I just had a light one. I had the shade 8, which is a light. Tan tends to stick to me really well anyway, so it was a kind of light medium, and it just gave me that glow because it was in the middle of winter, my wedding, so I didn't want to look like I'd been away in the Bahamas for 2 weeks. I just wanted to make myself feel better and have that glamorous look. So like I say, I use the shade 3W1 Tawny, and to apply it I use a damp beauty blender. I find this the best way to apply foundations. I just much prefer it over any kind of brush at all. I shake it up and put a little bit on my finger. Whatever has come out on my finger I'll spot around my face. So I always do some on my chin and on my cheeks. And then you're also going to want to make sure that you bring it down onto your neck a little bit as well, and then just blend that bottom half of your face out. With your wedding foundation as well, you definitely want to make sure that you keep the layers nice and light. So rather than going in with loads of product, if you've got some things that you want to cover, do a few lighter layers. And you can see that that gives such good coverage, so although I just use a thin layer, it's covered literally everything. I don't need to go in and use any concealer if I don't want to. Then we're going to take another finger's worth on the forehead, taking care around the eyebrows that we've already filled in. And when it comes to your hairline as well, I don't know about you, but because I'm so blonde, I need to make sure that it does blend into my hairline a little bit, but we don't want to go too far in that we start to get little orange patches. And finally I'm going to do one bit down my nose. You are going to want to avoid coming underneath your eyes as well. Foundations tend to have alcohol or some kind of drying agents in them, and because we're going to be placing concealer under there, we really don't need to be bringing the foundation all the way up to there. So now I'm going to go in with my Tarte Shape concealer. I'm going to place this underneath our eyes to cover any dark circles. So I like to use a triangular motion, making sure you go up to the sides of your nose as well. And then I also use this to highlight my face, so I came down the centre of my nose and on the sides to cover up any redness, because that is one of the first places that redness comes through, and then also on the chin and Cupid's bow. So right now we look really funny. And then we're going to take our beauty blender again to blend all of that out. And when we're blending it out, really make sure we're bringing it down a little bit and also up. And there we go, that's really brightened up our whole face now, giving you that really bright-eyed look. So what we're going to do now, before that sinks into any lines, is set our under eye area and T-zone. So I went back in with my Sigma tapered highlighter brush And the powder I used on my wedding day was the original RCMA No Colour powder. Now this is a little bit messy, but what I tend to do is I just dip my brush into the powder and tap it off, and then just lightly tap underneath your eyes. And then I also bring it down the side of my nose and out. And then just swirling a little bit more powder and taking that all around my nose, up into the centre of the forehead and on the chin as well. Now we're going to start adding a little bit more definition into our face. So I'm going to take a cream bronzer. I think it's really important to layer your products. So first, by taking a cream bronzer, you're going to get extra staying power for your bronzer on top of that. So the bronzer that I used was the Chanel Soleil Tan de Chanel, and I use this with a Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. And what I did is I did it along my cheekbones, around my forehead, and just underneath my lip a little bit as well. And like I say, by layering your products, you're going to make sure it lasts longer, you're going to get much better dimension, and you're going to make it blend a lot more seamlessly. So holding your hair out of the way, you're going to want to, if you don't know where your cheekbones are, do the fishy face. And you'll see that it pulls your cheekbones out. And I literally turn this brush on its side, placed it into the hollows underneath my cheekbones, and pat back and forth. And you'll see that creates a nice line for you there. So we're just going to repeat that on the other side. And there you go, you'll be able to start to see your cheekbones being defined. And then to blend that, I literally turn the brush vertically and then just go around the edges on the tops to blend it in. And then turn it back horizontally and just really lightly go around the bottom line. You do want that still to be quite sharp, but this is just going to mean it's not so harsh. And if you did get a bit carried away, you can always go in with your beauty blender around the edges, just to really soften it up. So now we're going to take some around the forehead. And this will really depend on your face shape. You're going to want to find what works best for you. So whether you need to keep it quite high up, whether you need to bring it in a bit more here. Like I say, just have a play around, have a look at face shape charts and determine what your face shape is, and then see what's going to work for that. Me personally, I like to keep it quite high up, but bring it then quite low across my temples. And then whatever's left on the brush, just run underneath your lip to give you a nice pouty look as well. And then we're going to go in and set this with a powder bronzer. So for the powder bronzer, because it's not a contour, it's just something we're using to set that bronzer in place, I think it's okay to use a slightly sheeny bronzer. Now I don't mean one with like full on glitter in it, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be matte. By using one that does have that slight sheen in it, you're going to keep a nice dimension to your face. So the one I used is by Becca, and it is the Sunlit Bronzer in the shade Capri Coast. So this is it here, and I don't know if you'll be able to see, it's very loved. I've hit pan on it just recently, but it does have a slight sheen to it, and it is a perfect shade to match my bronzer as well. And I used this Real Techniques blush brush, and I just swirled it and tapped off the excess, and then exactly where we just put that cream bronzer, we're just going to go over. So we're just going to really gently buff over there, and then patting it along the forehead, underneath the lip, and then I'm actually going to take a bit on the bottom of my nose, and then just really lightly down the sides of the nose as well. And then a good tip is to take this underneath your jawline and along it, and this is just going to define your jawline a little bit, so it's really great for disguising any kind of double chins. And then I'm just going to bring this down and just lightly dust over it, and this is going to help set that foundation on our neck as well. We're then going to really lightly contour our face, so we're going to dip back into the Kat Von D Shade and Light palette, and I use a mixture of the middle one and the end one. So I'm just going to really lightly, this is really pigmented, so you only need a really tiny bit, and using a tapered face brush, we're going to place this literally in the hollows of our cheeks really lightly, just dust back and forward. And then whatever's left on the brush, I'm also just going to take really gently around the temples. And then also down the nose as well. So I use two blushes, and the first one is by Sigma, and this is a Corda Rosa Aura powder. I use the same brush that I use for my bronzer, and this is literally like a rose colour. I would never have picked this blush up myself. It's almost a terracotta-y colour. I actually saw a couple of photos on Instagram and thought that is the shade I want for my blush, and scrolled the internet and messaged people to find out what it was. Found out that it was this one, and it did not disappoint. Go just above where we put that bronzer, still in the same kind of upwards motion to lift our cheeks. And again, I think blusher is one of those things that you can probably put a little bit more on than you probably usually would. You are a blushing bride after all. And then the second blush that I went in with is from Becca, and this is the Shimmering Skin Perfector Mineral Blush in Champagne Splits. So this is one where you have the highlighter on the top and the blush on the bottom. And this blush is in the shade Flower Child, so this is a gorgeous true pink. So I just put a little bit of that on my brush and then really use this on the apples of my cheeks to give you just a bit more of a pinky flush. And then finally for the face we have highlighter. Now personally on my wedding day I didn't want anything too out there, too striking. Highlighter may be one of those products that might be a little bit of a trend, so I didn't want anything too wet looking. So I decided to use an Hourglass powder, and this is in the shade Luminous Light. And I use this with an Anastasia Beverly Hills A23 brush, and this is a gorgeous natural shade. It has a lot of shimmer in there, but when it's on your skin it just kind of blurs into a nice soft focus, so you definitely get that lit from within kind of look. So I just loaded my brush up, tapped off the excess, and just really lightly put this on the high points of my face, so on my cheekbones. Then I also took this on my Cupid's bow. A really tiny bit down my nose and on the edge of my nose, not too much. Literally patted a tiny bit through the centre of the forehead, again because it's a nice light powder, and on my chin as well. So you'll see the look starting to come together a lot more now. And one of the most important things that I think is in any wedding makeup is a setting spray. I use the Skindinavia Makeup Finishing Setting Spray, and this is the Bridal one, and I use this on all of my clients no matter what they are doing. I think a setting spray is one of the key things to making your makeup last all day. It's also really great is this one because it makes any powders that are still sat on the surface of your skin just melt in, and like I say, because it is a specific bridal one, it's designed to soak up any oil and keep your makeup on for 12 hours plus. So just give it a really good shake up, and then I spray it just in rows all across my face, probably twice. And then just around for good luck as well. And then just let it dry off. And then it was at this point that I went in with my finishing touch products. So I'm going to come back to the eyes a little bit, but first what I did was I primed my lips. So I used the MAC Prep and Prime, and this is just what looks like a clear balm, and just run this all over my lips. And since we've primed everywhere else on our face, it only makes sense to prime our lips. So we're just going to let that sit in and go tack it while we finish the eyes. So coming back to the eyes, I'm taking my tiny little pencil brush. I'm going to add a highlight to the inner corners. So I'm going to use exactly the same shades that I use on the brow bone. So it's from the Too Faced Natural Love palette, and it's a mixture of Pink Cheeks and Poodle. Just putting that right on the inner tear duct. And I really love the look of a bright inner eye as well, so I tend to do a little bit more. There we go, that just looks so much better. And then we're also going to set our eyebrows in place using the Benefit 3D Brow Tones. This is in the shade, what shade is this? Number 2. And this is just going to make sure our brows set in place all day. But what's really great about the 3D brow tones is it does have a little bit of colour, but it's more of a highlight for your brow. So rather than making it darker, it's going to give you some natural highlights. So it's got two different types of ones in one. So you'll see it's got the main thick bit that you can brush through the bulk of your brow, and then right on the end, It's got a really defined bit that you can use for the tail or the very front. So what I did is I turn it on its side and brush up at the front, and then just pull it through the bulk and use the pointed bit right for on the tail. Now on my wedding day, like I said, I did have individual lash extensions, but to go that extra mile I then put some of my own party lashes on. So I use the Eyelids Lash Pro long wear individual eyelashes. I use the medium and long length, and I just added these to the very outer parts of my eyes just to really give me that extra voluminous lash look. And I was so pleased that I did this. Looking back at my photos on the day, I can definitely tell that it made a difference. So if you're going to do any kind of lashes, I would recommend that you use the more individual types. If you can, get them done professionally. Like I said, I did want to go in and add some extra as well, so that is also an option. Or if you are quite confident in your own abilities, then maybe just go for the eyelid individual ones. And then once I'd done that, my lips were all tacky, and right at the last minute I applied my lipstick. Now, I decided to use a liquid lipstick. It's really your personal preference. My favourites are the Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid lipsticks. For me, they stay on all day. I don't have to reapply them. They don't crack. They just work really well with my lips, and they seem to work really well with this MAC primer as well. And because I got married at Christmas time, I got married on the 15th of December, I wanted to do a red lip. I tried it out a few times when I had like my dress try-ons and some of my fittings, and one time I wore a red lip and one of the stylists there was like, "You're going to wear red lips on your wedding day, aren't you?" I was like, "Well, I'm considering it, yeah." She was like, "You should do, it looks so good on you." So I think that was kind of the tipping point. I'd always kind of wanted to, but her saying that it looked really good with all the look together just made me go over the edge. So the colour I use is in the shade American Doll, and this is just a true pillar box red, and yeah, it's that blue toned red, so it's going to make your lips look nice and bright as well. So I just used one thin coat of this all over. And there we go, that's the lipstick on now. The lipstick is actually picking up a little bit more orange on camera, but it's definitely a red. If you've seen any of my wedding pictures, then you will definitely know that it's a true red. And then that is everything that I did for my wedding day makeup. So this is the final look. I was so pleased with how it turned out on the day, and I got so many compliments about it as well. And my advice for you is, if you're going to be doing your own wedding makeup, just have lots of play around time. So make sure you start early as you get engaged, start practicing out some different looks. Look on Pinterest, watch some videos like this one, deciding what you want to do and what's going to work for you, and keep in mind your venue, if you're going to be somewhere really hot, if you're getting married abroad or just in a warm climate. And then my final tip is to make sure that you give yourself plenty time. I give myself an hour to do this without the lipstick, because I was like, I need to make sure it's perfect. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me recreate my wedding look. I absolutely, yeah, I love the way it turned out my wedding day. I love the way it turned out today. I was so pleased with it. Hope it can give you a little bit of inspiration for your wedding too. I did also do my own hair on my wedding day. So if you'd like to see me do a hair tutorial, a wedding hair tutorial, then make sure you give the video a like so that I can do that for you as well. Make sure you are subscribed to see more from my channel, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!